personally, when I found myself in a juncture in my life where I was questioning my relationships, my most intimate relationships, I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to feel into it so that I could process my emotions and feelings. And by that way, self-healing and providing myself with compassion for how I got to where I was, and then also learn a skill. So it's twofold. What I chose to do was turn towards a person who knew what the outcome was like for the problem that I was having. And so I turned to a teacher of relationships, and she helped me understand the difference between the feminine and the masculine brain and how they think differently. And knowing how they think differently allows me to make a lot of assumptions and to have certain expectations that I could actually dissolve, because knowing how our brains work differently provided me with a perspective that gave a lot of grace. And I couldn't have done that in talk therapy. And so often we go into talk therapy and we process through mentally and dissect conversations and what it means about us. And that's one way to do it. But for me, I wanted to be on the other side of the problem. And the way that I found that made the most sense to me was to turn towards who could provide me with information and a feeling that allowed me to open up my own awareness into myself, which we all have healing to do, every single person. There's no shortage of suffering on this planet. But what we're looking for are outlets to experience our joy. And that's the goal. Healing is a process that leads to joy and forgiveness and grace and connection and compassion and service. So the focus on our current medical system is, whether it's mental or physical illnesses, is on understanding mentally what has to happen in order to improve symptoms factually based on data. So if we're talking on the subject about what types of therapies are available to society right now, and as a civilization or a culture, let's be specific, in the US of A and maybe Canada, some, is never addressing the root of the thing. It's a lot of symptom work. That's what we'll call it, managing symptoms. Now, when we talk about holistic modalities of healing, we're going to talk about energy, is that it's the energy that is healing. And so 3 words that I want to focus on today are energy, awareness, and connectivity. Because you can't get awareness unless you have the right kind of energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be transferred and transformed. So if you have been dealing with a physical illness or a mental illness or emotional crisis, then if you really want to get to the root of it, you have to figure out who to see, not how to do or what to do. It's who can provide me with both information and energy that can open up awareness inside of a connection. So when people hear the word energy, a lot of people don't know what that really means. And I'll give you an example. Is if you walk into a room or a store, let's say for instance, where people are disgruntled and they're waiting in long lines and you can sense frustration, there's a certain kind of energy with that, versus being welcomed into an Airbnb that you've rented in a foreign land by somebody who has a smile on their face and a disposition that gives you good energy, a good feeling, a nice vibration. And so if you're going into, say, a medical office and the energy doesn't provide you with good sensations and feelings, then how can a healing occur? We're delaying the healing. So to get back on track about what energy is and working with healing modalities or holistic medicine, everything is energy. So if you're working verbally in communication using language with a therapist for cognitive purposes, you're using the mind to process emotion that will give you awareness into understanding why you might have a certain type of illness. Okay, so that's great. Well, if you take a higher level of vibration, energetic wise, and you're working with a practitioner who works with certain types of tools like internal family systems, or who uses a motivational inquiry, or who does Reiki with sound forks, or whether it's a person who administers acupuncture versus a facilitator who provides you with a psychedelic experience, everything is energy. And when you start to incorporate medicines, earth medicines, into the mix with a practitioner, a facilitator, or a guide, you're getting a lot more energy into it. And that energy allows our awareness to be opened up and channeled with inquiry into why we are experiencing whatever illness or malady that's in question. And so alternative forms of medicine are really important to start being open to, because they actually allow a person to self-heal while in the presence of a connected person who has the right kind of energy to facilitate a person's self-healing journey. And so that's a really important thing to talk more and more about, because the energy work or holistic modalities of healing are really broad and sound really woo-woo if you're in academia or more of an engineering type of mindset, that it's really easy to dismiss these kinds of spiritual concepts. But through spiritual wisdom is how we receive divine intelligence. And if it's not something that we've been exposed to in our lives, spiritual practices, spiritual awareness, forms of connectivity through energy work or sacred experiences, we found ourselves in a culture that says to children, say no to drugs, and then posts drugs on the side of a supermarket. And so then we have a society that's completely confused about what the meaning of drugs actually is versus the meaning of medicine. So it's important for me to be able to use language that bridges the divide between understanding how energy can be healing and how it's our connectivity that allows the transference of energy to occur. And this all happens through using language and different kinds of modality tools. Like there's a really great methodology called family constellations. I'm signed up to experience it for myself at the end of the month. I'll tell you all about it when I'm done. These types of tools and modalities facilitated by practitioners whose fundamental purpose is to provide good and sound and comforting and nutritive energy is what allows the patient, and let's say in this for instance it would be me, to really get comfortable and feel safe enough to explore consciousness, which is awareness. And at the moment in our healthcare system, these modalities are not offered and they're not covered by our health insurances. Right now in Utah, the word on the street is that next year, being able to use medicinal mushrooms in clinical settings will be offered in the legislature, pardon my informal governmental language. And I'll take it a step further to say that the clinical way isn't the best way. It serves its purpose to the people in places that hold plaques and certificates on the wall, but there has to be some sort of way to honor the methodologies of natural and alternative healing medicines, so that people can actually get the healing that they need and wean themselves off drugs that do not seek to remedy the root cause of an illness. And so it's an industry, the healthcare industry is just that. And we need to shift the scales in our consciousness to be able to open our minds to the idea that everything is energy and we are energy in motion. And if we have good energy and understanding and connectivity with our facilitator, the who is providing the tools in order to create awareness, it's important to have really close relations with this person. And at a time where traditional therapies are seeing a practitioner for 15 minutes once a year, or different practitioners for all these different things concerning an illness, whether it's mental or physical or emotional, I say we need a more integrated approach. So we have a really great opportunity here in exploring these realms. And for me personally, the medicine that has taught me the most about life has been the Madre Ayahuasca, who is the grandmother teacher. And if you reflect on what grandmother means to you, most of the time, I hope, is someone you think of who provides you with care and kindness and patience and understanding and maybe wise advice without being attached to the outcome. And that's a lovely feeling. And there are so many holistic practitioners out there right now who have gone through it themselves in their own life experiences, and they have found these modalities that really help create more connectivity and share good energy, and also provide tools for awareness so that we can self-heal. So I'm really a huge advocate for all the avenues of natural healing by really feeling into who can provide you with what you need in an amount of time that feels conceivable to you. And what I'm proposing here is that the answers to our own healing journey is to move towards our practitioners who have solutions that will get us to the place where we feel connected and joyful. Because, like I said earlier, living in this three-dimensional world, suffering is a part of the human experience. And it's our joy that puts us into a higher state of vibration. And the more joy that we experience in our lives, the higher we vibe and the better choices that we make. And we stumble and fall. And that's usually why we go to a therapist, because when we stumble and fall, we want to understand why that might have happened. And language is a wonderful connector, and it's also a barrier. So if your therapist does energy work and uses different kinds of modalities in talk therapy, you're one step closer to feeling a sense of joy and satisfaction more often. And we are in constant pursuit in life of satisfaction. And we have to look inwards on how to achieve that state. And because our world has gotten so mental, we have to seek the answers in the emotional body, in the spiritual body. These are realms that are worth exploring and are challenging to a lot of people to explore because of pain that they have gone through, whether physical, emotional, or mental. And the answer is love. The answer to everything is more love. And love is a felt experience, and it's a practiced experience. It is a truthful experience. It connects. It leaves you feeling whole. And so modern therapies have a real opportunity to dissolve some boundaries around the way that we do therapy. And I'm learning right now about harm reduction in therapies, especially pertaining to psychedelic therapies, because when you are embarking on a medicinal journey and your consciousness is open, the people that you're with or the person that is sitting with you or guiding you through the experience, it's really important that you know what the rules of engagement are, and that is discussed and disclosed before therapies are administered and received. And these are examples like what form of touch is appropriate for you, or would you like to discuss if putting my hand on your shoulder would feel comforting to you, and if the person you're with says, yes, I can agree that if I'm going through a challenging moment in time, that I think that having your arm on my shoulder would feel really nice. And we agree to that. And that's where the buck stops. And we both know that anything around that framework would be going outside of our verbal agreement. And human touch is incredibly healing. And because of our fear around lawsuits and misinterpretations, it's really important to trust the person that you're seeking therapy from, and to be able to have honest conversations about the things that have gone wrong in the past. I'll be the first to admit that I've gone to therapists who validate my childhood experience, so people who act like my mother or my father in ways that don't serve my highest good. And we're attracted to what's familiar. So my personal healing journey is identifying what actually feels good to me and what allows me to process painful things in real time in ways that feel empowering, and that the person that I'm using a therapy with has the best of intentions, where I feel connected through heart space, where there's trust. And the way that we are doing traditional therapies, which is seen mostly as talk therapy, which is covered by our health insurance, covers one spectrum but misses an opportunity to cover all different kinds of spectrums. And I hope this segment opens up the possibilities to what's fair and what's available, and how do we get our needs met in therapy that transcend mental cognition and more into a emotional and felt experience on a vibrational level, which carries us back to energy, and how energy is how we experience life, whether it's positive or negative. And there's a full spectrum. And as we engage in energies that provide us with a nourishing feeling, the more we can do that, the more we raise our vibration to be sustained. And if you really want to get woo-woo, we're entering into the new golden age. And what that means is we are moving past conflict in aggression or war or force, and more into collaboration and creating creative spaces to alleviate our pain, so that it looks like in the world like art. And learning togetherness and service mentality is how we can sustain those good vibrations. So if you are an energy worker, then you understand the call and what you're working towards. And if you're listening to this, scratching your head, asking yourself, how can this be applicable in your life? I would say that synchronicities are the highest form of logic. So as the universe responds to your inquiry, your Instagram feed, or a conversation you overhear at the grocery store, or something your child says, or something your mother shares with you will land, and you will be invited into call it a vortex that will provide you with breadcrumbs of information that will lead you to a higher place. And that's a felt experience energetically. And the events that I put on with my co-creator are designed to provide you with an extended time experience in that kind of energy field, where you leave and you have done healing work, but the focus is on what inspired you and what gave you new perspective, illuminated a belief that you had that was outdated, provide you with an experience where you're getting connected with other people in ways that put you in a discomfort zone, but in a good way. That space is held and it feels safe to be who you are, and to start to experiment with how you express. And that takes a certain kind of acceptance and a commitment to a zero negative space with no judgment. And in a world where there can feel like there's a lot of negativity in our media by the images that we watch in certain programs, television or internet programs, we need to have spaces that are immersed in nature, where the energy field is peaceful and gentle and wild and spontaneous and provokes curiosity about the self and in others. To anybody who is hesitant in exploring these energetic realms and using these tools, these modalities that I'm speaking about, my question to you is, what do you have to lose? And consider what it is that you have to gain. And I'll give you this perspective, is that up until this moment, you've had your whole life experience. And maybe there have been incidences that plague you and that live in your life today. And you're like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I want to live for today, and I want my tomorrow to be sunny and bright. So my invitation is to seek out a person or people or group that can help you understand yourself better while experiencing fun and joy. So let's take the simplest and most broad activity that you could do would be yoga, because it's done in a group setting and it's also a very individual process, and using the body to illuminate the mind and soul and open the heart. That's a practice that everyone's heard of yoga. That's one way to think of yoga. Well, if you're in a yoga class where there's no conversation after or before that's designed to bring connectedness and togetherness, there's like no homework and there's no community building. But if you go to a yoga class where the intention is to breed connectivity and togetherness, then perhaps you're going to use sound and the spoken word to intend on people leaving with an assignment. And that assignment might be during the sound healing portion of the class, the instructor, facilitator, or guide offers a suggestion to pay everyone that they see today before leaving the class, to pay them a compliment or to notice something about them, because you've had time in the yoga class to go internal and also observe your external to some degree. And maybe the assignment is to tune into someone else's energy field. Maybe the assignment is to notice something special about a person. And so we open up the channels of being vulnerable and uncomfortable and awkward. And it may be a bit silly, but what will happen is the next time this facilitator creates a class or a space for people to move their bodies, to process emotions, to open their hearts, to clear their minds, the people that made a connection in the last class will remember what that felt like and come to the next class. And maybe, just maybe, the next homework assignment will be ask somebody in this class for tea or dinner, for a walk. And in that kind of intention, space is made for real connection outside of the four walls of that class. And maybe that class, the whole intention is surrounded about our relationship with our mother. Let's say, for instance, whatever that is, everyone can relate to someone about what it's like to have a mother, surely. So you can start so simply by choosing to participate in experiences that cover the full spectrum, mind, body, soul. And once you start opening up your mind to new concepts, you'll have felt experiences that live in your life and that connect you with spirit. It's unavoidable and a wonderful thing to pursue.
It's perfect.
So I hope you can join me and my network of bees here in the Beehive State for a lot of good fun and a taste of the modalities that I've been speaking with in this segment.